Hello. Hey, everybody. Let's see who pops on in here. And what's up? We're going to get into this full moon in Gemini. I'm actually doing a multi stream. I have not gone live on YouTube like in a very long time. So it took me a while to kind of like figure out how to do it again. And I'm excited for those who are going to pop in to the reading for the full moon in Gemini. I'm actually going to do a stream on Clubhouse as well. So if you are in Clubhouse, go ahead and make sure you are a member of Chakras and Cuss Words house, which is where all of my rooms are in. And we are going to get into the astrology for today. And we are also going to get into the full moon in Gemini, a full collective reading for everybody, especially for all of the elements. So if you've ever been to one of my readings or listened to one of my readings, you know that it is a little bit different because it is a collective reading. So I don't individually concentrate on all of the 12 of the zodiacs, but I do um, address the elements of each zodiac. So I'm just a little bit of multitasking. Okay. A little bit of multitasking, guys. So let me just start to get this room going. So if you have any questions right now, it is a little bit of a trying to get on here, just trying to see what this is all about. Okay, let's get some music in the background. And so everybody just kind of relax for a second, right? Take this energy all in of where we are at in our day-to-day, where we are at as a whole, as a collective, and enjoy that space of intention. Enjoy that space of letting out some of our frustrations, letting out some of the new that comes up, some of the areas that might be holding us back, some of the areas that we feel as obstacles, and just take a breath in. And just kind of allow it to reset your mind. Allow it to reset the energy of who you are, the throat chakra, the energy of feeling aligned, and the energy of feeling wise in different aspects of movement. Hello, hi. So we're going to start to kind of clear our energy before we take hold of the reading of the full moon in Gemini. So just getting some time to let that time just kind of sit still with us. And if you can, let the full moon energy of the feminine pick up the element of breath and the element of sound. We have to remember when we are thinking about the Gemini and we are thinking about areas aligned with the duality of the Gemini, the duality of Mercury. We have to think about our two sides, right? Our side that is seen in public, the light energy. And then we also have to think of that side that's kind of hidden, maybe seen in the darkness, that shadow side, maybe that side of insecurities, that side of learning how to deal with obstacles, movements, and transitions. So, when we look at this full moon in Gemini, it's maybe a little bit different than some of the other moons that many of us would see as very strong moments or very dominant moments. Because this full moon is a little bit different because it does have some areas of obstacle when we look at the cosmic energy that's currently aligned in the cosmos, because we are currently in our full moon phase. And sometimes the illumination not only illuminates from the sun of the moon, but it also takes in the illumination and has very high energy moments with other planets, like, for instance, Uranus or maybe Pluto. So, currently, right now, we are in a moon in Gemini, we are in a sun of Sagittarius, and the planets are aligned as such. We have Mercury in Sagittarius, we have Venus in Libra, and we have Mars in Sagittarius. We also have Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus, Neptune in Pisces, and Pluto in Capricorn. We have Chiron, known as the wounded healer, stationed with Aries, and we have the North Node with Aries as well. We are currently in the ascendant of Pisces and the midheaven of Sagittarius. The aspects that we currently have right now that are very strong are the Sun conjunct with Mars. So that Sagittarius energy of the Sun being aligned with Mars may feel a bit spontaneous, may feel a bit emotional, almost too aggressive. We might be very testy with our words, especially as we are currently aligned with our moon in Gemini. It might make us say some hurtful things. We also have our Mercury squared Neptune, where we could often feel a area of disconnect with social groups, also with areas of dreams, areas of where we put our illuminations towards, where we felt like we were working very hard or towards certain relationships. And this can also be leaving us a little bit baffled in some ways because the mind is subject to receive these illusions and maybe have more of a emotional attachment to it as it is aligned with the full moon in Gemini. So it is a time to definitely concentrate on where it is that you are right here, not necessarily the overall dream aspect, but showing gratitude to where you are right now and not to let the frustrations of the current astrological or cosmic energy make you feel like you are unaligned. We also have the Mars squared Saturn. So currently we have Mars is squaring Saturn, which could also make us feel a little bit restricted. It can also make us feel like people aren't listening to us, people aren't taking in our insight when we look at areas of assertiveness. And also, we might feel like there are some restrictions right now with how we are seen as an assertive being, as a creature of the area of our emotions, and especially when it all dives back into communication. We have to look at how are we communicating with our loved ones? How are we communicating with our partnerships? How are we communicating with our job? Maybe how are we communicating with the people who follow us or the people who look at us for inspiration? Are we feeling truly aligned in that destiny path and not letting the emotions take over the area of who we are and the communication? So that is some of the obstacles or the hardships that might come with this moon, because this moon does have some strengths and it also has some obstacles. With every cosmic energy, there's always the light and the shadow. So we have to understand that even though this moon might have some very strong aspects that feel a little bit hard for us to take or for us to even receive. Maybe we've received some hard communication. Maybe some people haven't communicated with us like how we would appreciate them to, because we feel that we've been working so hard towards something or working so strong in certain aspects, and people don't see that perspective that we have, that perspective. We might feel like our emotions are being dismissed. But this moon also has a lot of strong ties in strength that I would hate for anybody to hear maybe somebody say, don't create intentions on this moon because it does have some shadow of the Mercury beginning to transition towards retrograde season. But to actually take it in with an energy of hope, right? Because it is a full moon that has some strengths tied into it. The moon is sextiled with Chiron, which allows us to take a moment to appreciate everything that we have learned in our healing journey, everything that we appreciate in our energy of once moving past grief, once moving past turmoil, and once moving past hurt. And take that energy and acknowledge it. Take that energy of where you came from, who has possibly hurt you, betrayed you, and how you moved forward, because that is a mechanism of strength. Also, when we look at the wounded healer, we have to understand that when it is tied in with the area of the cosmic energy of today, and especially with Gemini, the socialization of what's going on in the world, what's going on in our communities, what's going on in our peer groups or friends, that we might feel sometimes like we want to change the world, but we try and we just can't. And we have to allow ourselves to come to the agreement that we can only do so much, right? We can't let our mind, our body, or our physical aspect become more entwined with hate or negative thoughts to individuals or other solar creatures, because we have to remember that we are all soul energy, we're all spirit energy. And even though we might see each other by gender, religion, color, we are all individually so uniquely the same in some aspects. We are all creatures of the universe. We are all God's creatures. We are all the creature of life. And holding the suffering and trauma so internally on things we can't control sometimes holds us back. So it is a good time to clear that energy away, especially with this full moon in Gemini. Also, when we look at the certain aspects that are considered a strength, is the Mercury sextiles Venus. With this Mercury sextiling Venus, we want to look at what it is in the energy of our relationships, the beauty, and love. Where are we with money? Where are we with accomplishments? What it is that we can share and what it is that we can also give back, what it is that we can take more in of without having to involve too much of the ego and too much of that higher energy of feeling so aligned with energies of greed and energies of false fulfillments. But look at the finances, at what feeds the soul, where it feels right and aligned in our relationships and also our relationships with money. Also, it is a beautiful time to take up the arts and the finances as seeing it as a pattern. If you ever look at somebody who is, I guess you could say, who is successful in certain areas, you have to understand that they usually study the arts of philosophy. They usually study the art of different aspects of how the world works, how the energy of the solar system works, how the energy of the cosmos work, how the energy of attraction works, the mindset. It's much more than just getting out there and working really hard, but understanding that what you put out there is also what you receive. It's an energetic law of physics. It's an energetic law that you attract who you are. And that is either in areas of wealth, that's either in areas of relationships, boundaries, communication, but attracting that area of communication in not only the relationships of wealth, money, but also the area of the mind. Also, for this um, full moon, we have a Mars sextiles in Pluto. And for this, it might feel very spontaneous. It might feel a little aggressive. But when we look at the sextile of Pluto, we have to remember that with all good things, sometimes comes that energy of closure, that energy of death, that energy of saying goodbye. And if somebody has made you feel unaligned in maybe a relationship, or made you feel unaligned in maybe areas of um, security, maybe areas of the root chakra, energy of the sacral chakra. How do you close that chapter with this full moon in Gemini? How do you use the communication where that pattern isn't continuing to go over and over again? Pluto represents the area of to many people, transformation, becoming a higher level. It is that energy of the phoenix that was once burned down, that was raised above the ashes, that area of the dark raven, the area of the bird that continues to fly after everything has been thrown at it, put it in an obstacle, and put it in a captive state. But yet the phoenix continues to rise. The phoenix continues to move, that area of energy that continues to move past the obstacles and says, I'm not scared to change. I'm not scared to move forward. I'm going to take each step and continue to go. It is a very, some might see almost a scary time, right? But when we look at it as the full moon in Gemini and how is this all playing way, we have to think about it. We have to think about it as how do we change? How do we use that communication to share to others that we are changing, we are evolving, and we are moving forward, even with areas of despair, areas of socialization that maybe has felt like a hinder, but we continue to move forward. So it is a time that you could potentially feel angry and overly assertive and spontaneous, but also allow yourself to see the surface, allowing yourself to close that chapter, to close that spontaneous energy of the solar plex, of the height, and to allow it to kind of remain settle and allow yourself to take the next step forward in whatever it is that you are willing to change from and that you are seeing insightful in your analyzation of moving forward. We also have to remember that when we are taking into that Pluto energy, it is a step in a different direction a different pathway, a different energy that sometimes we don't feel aligned. But in all honesty, that alignment is pushing us to move forward past the obstacles. So we are going to get into the reading. After I did that quick little breakdown of the full moon and what it means. So this will be a fast reading for the elements. And the elements include air, fire, water, and earth. So just everybody take a breath in and allow yourself to clear anything that is intense or feels like it's weighing you down. Allow that energy to clear out. Allow that energy to move forward, to adapt, to transform, and become aligned with who you are. With this full moon in Gemini, allow your throat chakra to awaken. If you feel like it's unclear, you can clear it with humming throughout the day. You can also clear it with warm teas, taking in natural elements such as blueberries, eggplant, aromatherapies, lavender, frankincense, allowing the mind to open up and the words to move with wisdom. So for the first element, it will be the fire signs. And if you are a fire sign, that means you are either a Sagittarius, a Leo, or an Aries. For the fire signs, it's a time that you surrender to the sweetness. You surrender to the Venus energy. And I'm like smiling because the Venus energy is so beautiful. I just recorded a podcast on the planet of Venus. Everything that Venus holds sacred, the divine space of the planet, how it transitions in our charts, the energy it has in relationships, the interpersonal space. So I will be releasing that probably in December. This is also a time for you to speak on the pleasures of joy, the pleasures of your feminine, your desires, to, as one might say, appreciate the alchemy of life, appreciate making a love to love life, making that energy where we are in our own right in our divine space. We are in our own right in our sweet space, our surrender, our element of moving forward and taking in the beautiful goddess energy or godlike energy that we have right here, that so many times it's overlooked with things that have very false interpretations, where we think that money buys happiness. We think that sometimes being with a certain person might bring us happiness, or being in a relationship because we feel designed to stay there is something we have to do. But in all honesty, it's surrendering to the sweetness of what truly makes the individual happy, what truly makes that one person aligned in the life they are in right now. For the next element, that will be the water signs. And if you are just popping in or just watching the chat or just watching the or listening to the reading, you can listen to the replay if I missed your element, and also hear the full meaning and cosmic alignment of the full moon in Gemini. But welcome everybody. And this is for the water signs. And water signs, if you are a Pisces, a Cancer, Or if you are a Scorpio, you are a water sign. And we have to remember that the water signs are tied into that sacral energy of the passion place of the sacral chakra, which is a water element. So let's look at this because this is kind of a funny card to go with the water signs, but it rings true: star bathing. And when I'm getting a card like this, I automatically think this is a time to clear the aura. This is a time to clear the energy light. This is a time to clear the space of release, maybe to clear away certain ties, maybe to clear away certain disbeliefs. But this is a time to do a clearing, especially with water as a water sign. And that could be a ritual bath. That could be creating a crystal grid. That can be activating your moon water. And if you have moon water, you could put it out tonight as well as yesterday and the following day, because this is a full moon. So it's usually able to take it all in within the next 2 days. Creating moon water, but if you have tap water, you can. You can also introduce some safe herbs into the moon water, especially if you are looking to engage the throat chakra and you do plan on ingesting the water. You could bring in some areas of blueberries. You could also bring in some energy of lemon to energize and clear the throat. Um, you are to leave your moon water out overnight. You could also use crystals not in the water. Some people do, but I don't recommend it just because not all the crystals are safe. And also, sometimes people don't know the actual place where the crystals have came from. So I would recommend place your crystals around the container if you can, not necessarily in the container. If you are looking to tap into the other elements of moon water, you can also put the energy of maybe lavender underneath the moon water, let it kind of soak up the properties of the lavender, the calmness, the throat chakra, that area of insight. Then take your moon water. You could keep it in the refrigerator, and you can drink it. And the moon water has the energy from the moon and also the sun that is opposing it. And it's taking in that area of communication, especially with the throat chakra. Also, for a clearing bath, you can use rituals such as whatever you see comfortable with, right? If you want to burn rosemary, if you want to burn incense, if you want to burn candles, surround your bath, or you could do a aura clearing shower where you wash the water away from you, clear that aura, and speak your intentions into the water. We have to remember that water is a conductive energy. It has a memory to it. So what you speak as you drink is very meaningful. So it is a good time to clear away areas of disbelief, areas of obstacles that have been holding you back, and take in new intentions, especially with moon water or with a ritual bath, however you choose for the water signs. The next element that I will be pulling for is the earth signs. And if you are a earth sign, that means that you are either a Taurus, a Capricorn, or a Virgo. So for the earth signs, the energy that you guys are picking up is the breath of the cosmos. My will, thy will, micromanaging the universe. So when I think of this card, and I don't necessarily pull tarot on a collective reading just because tarot can get really intense. If you ever want a tarot reading, you can schedule one with me. But for this, these are all oracle cards. So for the breath of the cosmos, the micromanaging of the universe, my will to thy will. This is an energy that's allowing you to possibly let go of the control, to let go of the surrender where you feel like you aren't achieving it because you're attempting to control it. When we look at this energy of something that is being micromanaged or overanalyzed, and it feels almost so repetitive, it creates a pattern that allows us to keep this repetitive nature up. So, as a earth sign, you should actually be working on your breathing technique, letting in that energy of holding what's holding you back and feeling like it's weighing on you, and taking a few breaths in and out and releasing it. Sometimes, as a earth sign, we spend so much time here on the planet, right? We're very grounded. Most most earth signs are very grounded. They're very grounded individuals where they often maybe seem a little bit too rooted. And you want them to have that air quality to break up the roots, to kind of move the roots and get the roots a little bit more shaken up, as one might say. And it's okay to make yourself uncomfortable. It's okay to like go out and try new things. And I think sometimes as earth signs, they want to take in so much of that management, so much of that discipline, so much of that structure, because they are a very rooted base element. They are a very rooted based zodiac, that they like the foundation to be strong, right? They're not going to walk on a messy, unaligned, steepy bridge. They want their bridge to be structured. They want to know their bridge is safe. They're not necessarily going to take a leap into something that might be considered maybe like unsafe, like a air sign might, or maybe even a fire sign. So when we look at the earth signs at that way, how can you let more of that flexibility in? Because that's really what it is, the flexibility of creating more alignment with the universe. I would say go out there and really take some breath outside and take in that breath outside. Also, rearrange the rocks. And I know that sounds really strange. Like, what do you mean rearrange your rocks? But when you look at everything, and everything's been in this beautiful pattern for so many years and so many decades and for so long outside that surrounds your home, it might be a time to rearrange them. And even though it may make you a little bit uncomfortable, woo, what is that going to do? It's going to challenge you to step outside of that box and to rearrange your rocks, to make that energy feel a little bit more whimsical, to feel a little bit more magical and more of a surrender, because now you're creating a new energetic alignment. It's not what it always was. So if you can go out there and maybe rearrange the plants, I know it's cold, or rearrange your rocks or rearrange your crystals, but change it up a little bit for the earth signs. Also, make sure you speak out that energy of communication of where it is that you want to change, where it is that you want to feel a little bit more brave, where it is that you want to feel a little bit more bold, like an air sign might, and see where that resonates with you and take those steps to complete those. For the air signs, if you are an air sign, that means that you are a Aquarius. You are a Gemini. So for the Geminis, this full moon is really aligned with you. You are a Libra. And it was funny because today, when I was doing my recording of Venus, right, I was thinking about Libras. And I was thinking, like, Oh, Libras, Tauruses, like famous Libras. And like Cardi B just like I think cuz I just heard one of her songs and I was listening to one of her songs and she's like, saying all these things like she wants and I'm like that is such a Libra. That is such a Venus energy to be like I get this. I want that. I mean, I can't rap or nothing, so don't hold your breath, okay? But so let's look at what is coming away for the air signs and how to take in this area of intention in the air element of the full moon in Gemini. So, for the air signs, the card that we have is karmic relationships, Orion's energy, polarity, soul growth, and conflict. Ooh, that's a little deep. So, when we look at our karmic relationships, we have to remember that people are brought into our lives for certain reasons, certain times, events, and sometimes even lessons. Sometimes when we have a karmic relationship, it could be because we are just meant to learn that one thing. We are just meant to learn a series of things throughout the relationship. And this karmic relationship can happen with almost anybody that you have a relationship with. The karmic relationships, most of the time, we see them with families. We see them with mother, child, father, brother, sister. There is karmic ties, and also with long marriages. We see that karmic energy. A twin flame isn't necessarily a karmic relationship. It's not necessarily that energy where you have to heal something, repair something to move past that karmic lesson. A twin flame energy is a little bit different. And sometimes it could be a little bit more of an energy where the twin flame relationship is a twin flame relationship, exactly what it says, very fiery, sometimes even toxic. But a karmic relationship is learning from that individual soul, learning from that spirit, learning the karmic ties that the universe has. We have to remember there are 12 laws of karma. And how is this relationship reflective over those laws? How is the reflectiveness that you are learning from this relationship tied back into everything that you are learning through that relationship? For instance, let's say if there is a family member who may be very, how can I say, very critical on some people, right? Maybe very critical on their children, right? Um, and you look at that relationship. Maybe you are the child of that person. You look at that relationship and you see what it is in that relationship that you don't want to pass on. But also, it's so easily to do so because that is what you've been taught. That is the karmic alignment, is understanding that what you put out into the universe is often what you will tend to receive. So then you see that maybe you too are becoming very critical. You too are maybe becoming a little bit more egocentric than what you once thought you would be, and you acknowledge that. And then you're able to take that soul growth, that growth of the lesson that you learned from that karmic relationship and transform it. You break those curses, you break those generational curses, you break those karmic ties that allow you to be, in some ways, maybe toxic, maybe allow you to see the ego instead of the higher spirit, allow you to be centered in an area where you're like, oh, now I see it. And understanding that karmic relationship. But we also have to look at polarity when we think of this being for the air signs. Polarity usually is that attraction, that magnetic attraction that is almost like an opposite, right? So if you are a feminine air sign, meaning you are a female, we have to remember that the air signs are masculine. And then maybe there is a polarity with a feminine masculine. For instance, maybe the gender is a male, but they have more of a feminine nature. There's that polarity. You have to learn to almost work with that polarity of the opposite. And when we look at karmic relationships, and we look at that energy of the karmic relationship, usually it's happening with the opposite sex. So it's usually happening either with a father and daughter relationship or a mother and son relationship, or it could be happening with a wife and husband relationship, usually when we are talking about polarity. So when we look at the karmic relationships for the air signs for this full moon in Gemini, we have to remember that conflict, as much as we want everything to be beautiful and peaceful and happiness, that's not why we're here, right? That's not why our souls have returned. That's not what the messenger is allowing us to take in, right? We have to remember that there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be insight. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be that. The way that we communicate to the universe, in all honesty, is very positive when we think about it. When we think about how we're going to use that throat chakra energy to keep the communication to the universe aligned, to keep our solar energy aligned, to keep us in our divine path, we have to remember that conflict will come up, and especially in karmic relationships and karmic ties. So how do we look and take a step back? Acknowledge that. Acknowledge our communication, right? Acknowledge maybe if it is a relationship that feels very karmic, where it feels almost a little bit like you are meant to learn something, you might have to take a step back. Not saying you have to end the relationship better, or, completely, like end it for good, but you might have to take a step back and see how you can manifest the energy that breaks those karmic ties, that turns that karmic relationship into a well-being for the path of the journey of your own energy. So for the air signs, definitely make sure when you are communicating, not to communicate in ways that feel very abrupt. Sometimes the biggest communication might be no communication at all for a little bit, right? Taking that breath, taking that step outside, taking that time away to say, I need to let myself breathe, right? And air signs tend to get very spontaneous and assertive. That's just their nature. They're air signs. So to take that time to acknowledge that and say, this is how I'm going to realign this energy alignment. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out, for jumping into this recording and reading of the full moon in Gemini. So thank you so much. And I have a new podcast actually out today, which is on the astrology dates of December. And if you want, you can listen to the full version on Chakras and Cuss Words podcast, or also on the YouTube channel. If you want to listen to the shorter version, you can listen to that on Clubhouse if you are a member of Chakras and Cuss Words House. So everybody, thank you so much for coming in today. Bye.